Hello, everybody, and welcome to our session today. So glad that you're able to join us here for what's going to be an awesome session. So, I'm joined here by Michael, and we're going to do a few introductions just to kick things off, and then we'll get into our session. So, my name's Chris Stewart. I'm a technology consultant from Eastern Ontario. So, I am joining you live and virtually today from Brockville, Ontario, which is situated under Treaty 1783, otherwise known as the Crawford's Purchases. So I'd like to begin our session with an acknowledgement of the land. So, as I mentioned, I'm joining you from Brockville, Ontario, and these are the traditional and treaty lands of the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, part of Crawford's Purchases of 1783. And that agreement was made to provide land for the United Empire Loyalists and their Indigenous allies following the American Revolution, which has shaped and continues to shape the histories and relationships that we navigate today. As we gather in this virtual space to explore AI and coding applications, it is important to recognize that technology, like land, is not neutral. The ways in which knowledge is created, shared, and used have long been shaped by colonial systems. As we engage in learning today, I encourage us all to reflect on the responsibilities we carry to ensure that innovation is inclusive, ethical, and grounded in principles of respect and actions of reciprocity. I remain committed to learning from Indigenous perspectives on technology, data sovereignty, and knowledge sharing, and to seek ways that digital spaces can amplify rather than erase diverse ways of knowing. So I invite you, wherever you are joining in from today, to reflect on the lands in which you live, the histories they hold, and how we can collectively work together towards reconciliation in both the physical and digital spaces. Okay, so thank you very much. I'm going to pass things over to Michael.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Aloha, everyone. My name is Michael Furcano II, and I'd like to acknowledge that I'm presenting from the traditional territory of the Hawaiian people, whose beautiful land on which I'm able to teach and learn and explore and share my passion of technology with all of you. I live on and work on the island of Oahu in the heart of Honolulu. There, it's the sort of the top left middle island there. Also contains Pearl Harbor and a lot of historical locations.
Thanks, Michael. Yeah, for sure. So this session, of course, being provided by Logix Academy. So you can see our website is there, as well as our socials. So certainly encouraging you to check that out, and we'll go into more depth about what you can find there. Now, if you're here, then certainly you registered for this fantastic event, and there are many, many of them that you can see here through this catalog. So please know that the links to all of the sessions, right, will get you into the recording. So if you need to go back and reflect, if you want to share that video with a colleague or somebody else, it's there for you. Okay. Now, special shout out to a particular workshop, the Student Experiences Workshop. So here's the thing. You've got an awesome opportunity to win a Chromebook. So if you can check out Cami's session on AI fundamentals before December 2nd, get yourself into that draw. You could find yourself the proud owner of a new Chromebook.
What a good deal.
I think so. Yeah, no, it's a fantastic deal. And yeah, and of course, we often think of computer science in December as a week-long event, but really, friends, it's if not a month long, it's a year-long thing. But we are going to celebrate for sure the month of December here with and through Logix Academy with our Computer Science Ed Month. Okay, so there is a bit link. We're going to throw that into the chat in just a moment. And that way you can see all of the recordings. Okay, so we'll get that to the chat soon. So Again, there are a number of great and fantastic sessions supported by many of our partners. So here's just a few of them now. So certainly you can see coding is involved, and then also AI and coding. So some awesome opportunities there. And moving forward, let's see, in our next slide, we've got even more awesome examples. So coding with Codingville, coding in Minecraft, using AI and coding in Canva. So a lot of great learning to be had and a lot of great tools and applications that you can be using in your practice. So let's see what's up next. Again, well, you're excited now, right? So there's that link. And again, I will get that into the chat for you
Thanks, Chris.
so you have a chance to get to those recordings.
Mhm.
And of course, through Logix Academy, we're providing a lot of great PD and a lot of fantastic resources. And you can see a lot of our partners there on screen right now. And we'll say a little bit more about them. We'll just advance to our next slide. And of course, through Logix, you have access to many STEM products, anything from robotics to microscopes to 3D printers. Check it out online. There's so much there. And of course, this summit, this session, all of the sessions are not possible without sponsorship. So we are certainly thankful to Google Canada and in particular Sandy Curry, who is a project manager for Gen AI for educators at Google Canada. So thank you, Google, for your generous support in sponsoring these awesome sessions. Now, by the end of this session, by scanning the QR code or following the bit link I put in the chat, you can download your very own certificate of completion. Okay. All right. So I think that kind of introduces a lot of our background here at Logic. So now over to Michael to take us through vibe coding and what that means for the future of computer science.
Thanks, Chris. And we'll have this slide back at the end as well if you
Absolutely.
missed the QR code. But, okay. Thank you so much, Chris. Thanks for the introductions. I appreciate it. Thanks for helping me out today during my session. This is the last session of this fabulous event, this Google AI Summit. But welcome to what I call Ctrl+AI, vibe coding, and the future of computer science. And before I progress here and get started, you'll want to visit this link here. Maybe we can throw it in the chat to help everyone out. But edtechnocation.com/vibecoding will take you to my resource page. It contains this slide deck. It's embedded as well as links to the tools and some resources that I'm going to share throughout this session. And it also includes some sample prompts that we'll use throughout this session. So definitely encourage you to play and explore and experiment alongside me as I talk about vibe coding and demo some examples. So feel free to join that link there. We'll get it in the chat soon. Let's get started. Okay, so for decades, ever since computers have been a part of our classrooms, the most popular keyboarding shortcuts, maybe you can guess, you can chime in on the chat, but they've been Control-C and Control-V, right? Control-C is the copy, Control-V is the paste. We copy, we paste all the time, but today I want to invite you into a new era, which I'm referring to as Ctrl+AI. And in this new era, it's not just about doing things faster, right? That's kind of the purpose of Control-C, Control-V, right? Copy pasting gets us through, makes things more efficient, gets us through things a lot quicker. But in this era, it's not about that anymore. It's about a fundamental shift in how we create software, how we create widgets and apps and digital virtual activities. And so that's what we're going to focus on today, this term called vibe coding. And what is it? I mean, it's very popular now. It's very prominent in the coding industry, but it definitely has an impact on computer science in education, most definitely. So what is vibe coding? So it's important that we define it first. And you might have heard the term vibe coding floating around social media. Maybe you haven't. Sounds very casual, right? The term vibe. But as I mentioned just a moment ago, it's a very serious shift in the computer science industry and especially in how we teach our students to become computer scientists. Now the difference. So in traditional coding, if you we're missing a semicolon, or you received an error message, it might take you 10, 15, 20 minutes of frustration, that whole debugging process, right? In vibe coding, it's more a focus on the intent and the outcome. What do we want to have in the end? What kind of product, what kind of tool, what kind of app? And so you describe in vibe coding, what you do is you describe the vibe. Uh, what what do you want the app to do? What do you want it to look like? What do you want it to feel like for your end user? And the important thing about vibe coding is the AI handles the syntax. The AI does all the coding for you. You're basically having a natural conversation with an AI tool, and it's developing that app for you along the way. Okay. So before we move on, if have any live viewers out there, I want to encourage you to share your feelings about this idea of vibe coding in the chat. So in one word, how does AI writing code for you or for your students make you feel? Does it make you feel a little excited about what the potential of that could mean? Is it a little scary for you? Are you a little curious about it, or maybe you're a lot curious? So take a moment, type in the chat. Give me one word on your feeling around vibe coding is so far from what you've heard, or maybe what you've seen, not just what you've heard from me, but if you've kind of been following along with vibe coding out there in the CS world. How does it make you feel? How about you, Chris?
Well, for me, I would say I'm a bit biased because I mean I've jumped in full-fledged use of vibe coding. So I've created a number of different applications that I may not have been able to do prior to because I didn't have those full libraries of coding, at my disposal, nor did I fully understand all of the syntax, all of the rules, and the ins and outs of that. So it sort of made it a little bit inaccessible. Not that I couldn't learn it and do it, but I've really found that my ability to code and understand the code and how blocks or snippets work together and what the different parts do, I think has enriched my ability to, I can have an idea about what I want
Mhm.
the end product or my app to look like or do, but I really see the connections now, and I think it's enriched my ability to problem solve and to think about just what kind of awesome products that I can do, like for myself, and put out there to the world. So I,
Yeah.
I'm a bit excited. I'm more maybe on the the other end of the scale.
On the excited side.
Uh, yeah,
So,
on the excited end.
well, definitely. I mean, whether you're excited or scared or a bit nervous or curious, those are all valid concerns, right? I'm definitely. I teach computer science at the elementary level. Um, I don't necessarily think vibe coding is a fit in the elementary level, so I don't necessarily approach it with students. I use it personally as a teacher. I use it as a parent, even to create study guides and apps for my child, which I'm going to try to show you some examples a little later.
Sure.
But yeah, it's definitely it's got a lot of potential. It's if you follow vibe coding or vibe coders on social media, it's got a lot of potential. It's a really interesting topic. It's not going to go away. So I think it's something that definitely needs to be embraced. But how do we embrace it as
Yeah.
educators? That's the big question. How do we help our students through something that has the potential for, I don't know, replacing, changing how we teach computer science? So
Hmm.
let's
Yeah. No.
let's explore that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so um, the pedagogical shift, right? So that's one important thing we need to think about and consider when we talk about vibe coding, and when we consider how or even if we want to bring something like this into our classroom. Um, so we're moving with vibe coding, we're moving from training what I like to call syntax masters, right? Or if you think of it in terms of metaphors, like the bricklayers who know exactly how to mix the mortar, to what we can now call system architects, people who design the building, right? And so with vibe coding, what you're considering is teaching new skills, right? And really important thing to consider is if AI is writing the code, which is what vibe coding is all about, right? AI does the coding for you. what as teachers, what are we actually teaching them? I mean, if we're not teaching them how to write code, what becomes our responsibility as educators in a computer science classroom? And there can be three things that can be considered, right? So one is the ability to evaluate, right? And so can you look at, as a student, can they look at AI's output and know if it's safe and efficient, and if it's achieving the goals that we set out through vibe coding? Can we effectively evaluate what's being created, what it's creating for us as we have a conversation with it? Second is direction. So can we be able to articulate the problem that we're trying to solve clearly enough for a machine to understand it? Because with AI, it's a prediction model. It's trying to guess the next best word. In this case, it's trying to predict the next best line of code to create what you're trying to articulate to it. And can we do that effectively? Can we explain our problem and our design idea, and even down to the very intricate details of, let's say, an app, where we want the buttons to be, what we want the user interface to look like? Being able to articulate that with words can be a struggle, right? It's definitely important in something like vibe coding. And then third is integration. Can you make different pieces of code work together, right? Can you connect this screen to this screen? And what if, and then also, make predictions on what your users might do. We might have an idea of how we might want an app or a tool to function, but when it gets out there into the real world, different people find different ways to use and interact with those tools, and we have to be able to predict that and be able to make connections so that it works the way that we intended to do. So when you think about that pedagogical shift, it's really thinking about the new skills, or focusing on different sets of skills that we want our students to achieve in order to be good programmers. So what I'm going to do in this session is I'm going to focus on two specific tools. They're definitely not the only tools out there. In the world of vibe coding, there are many apps now that are designed specifically to be good vibe coders. I'm not going to focus on those tools. Those are like paid tools. What I'm going to focus on are two specific ones that you can access for free. They also have a paid side, as always, but the first one here is Google Gemini. That's just my go-to. I'm a heavy Google user, and so Gemini now is integrated in a lot on the Google side. If you use Gmail and Drive and Calendar, it's pretty well and fully integrated in those tools. But of course, there's the standalone AI tool, Google Gemini. And Google Gemini can vibe code. What I'm going to focus on, though, with Gemini is using it as a tutor or as a pair programmer. If you're a code.org user, or if you're a teacher that uses code.org, pair programming might be something you're very familiar with. The idea of pairing up students and having them work together to create programs and debug programs. An AI tool can help be that pair programmer to work alongside you as well. I'm going to give you some tips and ideas on how that might be possible if your students are able to access a tool like Gemini. But the tips and strategies I'm gonna demonstrate with Gemini they're not necessarily only possible with Gemini. If you use, especially if you're working with younger students, for example, like with my elementary students, we use Magic School. And so I have designed chatbots that my students use to help them debug in the tools that we use, like Scratch and Delaytex. So it is possible across other tools as well. Okay, but let's get into it. How can we use Gemini as a tutor and a pair programmer? So one is this idea of using AI to help you better understand code, right? To be your what we like to call the comprehension assistant. And so the goal here, the idea is to use AI as a tool for comprehension, not just to complete the work, but to allow it to help better explain to you what the code is doing, what its purpose is, and what the ultimate intent is. So I'd like to demo an example here, and feel free to follow along with me. If you have access to Gemini or really any AI tool, AI chatbot, you can attempt this as well on yours and see what kind of output you get, because the output is not the same for every user. So I've got a link here on slide 20 to some sample Python code that you can try this out with. So if you access this link on slide 20, it'll take you to a publicly accessible Google Doc here that has some code. And this Python code, excuse me, is a very simple set of code that creates a rock, paper, scissors game. Okay, and so you could take the code below here and copy it, Ctrl+C. And then I'm going to use Google Gemini for my example, but in my chatbot here, I'll ask my prompt first, and a very simple prompt. I have it in the slide here as well. I wanted to explain the code to me line by line, for example, like I'm an 8th grader. Okay, so asking the code, very simple but very specific prompt. Explain it to me, break it down line by line, treat me like I'm an 8th grader, or whatever grade I'm in. So I'll take my prompt here. Say explain this Python code to me line by line like I'm an 8th grader. And then I'll paste my my code here. Just copy it again just in case. And then we'll see what kind of output we get. Can I zoom in here? Yeah, zoom in a bit. Okay, so here so at least in Gemini, you can see it's built its response here. So it automatically knows just by analyzing the code. I didn't even tell it specifically what this code's purpose was, but it was able to analyze that code and determine that it's a game of rock, paper, scissors just by pasting in the code. And here it's going to break down line by line an explanation of what the code does. So it first gives me the setup of the game. So it's breaking down different specific pieces of code here. So the import random line gives me a nice explanation of what that's purpose is. And it even, again, it's treating me like an 8th grader, like I'm a child, right? So it says something like, it's saying, hey, Python, I need you to use your random module. Right? And it tells you what that means. And then moves. This line creates a list and names it moves. It contains 3 valid things. So it's breaking down different parts of my code. And then when I get down below here, the main game loop. And again, taking each line of code and breaking it down line by line and explaining it to me. Excuse me. And then it gets into the computer's turn. So in this rock, paper, scissors game, I'm playing the computer. And so it breaks down the section where the computer takes its turn and checks its results. So it's breaking down line by line. And then so after all that, the code goes back to the very top of the while true loop and asks you to enter your move again. So it's a constantly looping code, so you can play the game over and over again. And then at least in Gemini, it'll ask you a question at the end to kind of continue the conversation. Would you like to know how you could add a lizard and Spock move to this game? So if you ever played rock, paper, scissors, sometimes people like to add other objects. So that'd be a cool way to kind of what do you call it? Iterate the game and make it play a little differently. Okay? So again, using the idea here is to use AI to help break down lines of code, to explain what each of those lines mean, to help a student better understand and comprehend what's happening in that program. And AI can be a really powerful tool for that. The other thing that AI can be really good at is the process of debugging, of helping a student find a bug, help a student explain, why it's a bug and what problem it's causing in the program. I like to call this the unstick me prompt, right? So helping students get unstuck when they're trying to debug something. Debugging can be a very frustrating process, especially with my students. The biggest problem I see when I'm teaching my students to code is they like to code a lot and then test it, and then they run into lots of bugs. And it's very difficult to figure out like where, breaking that debugging process down and thinking, where's the first bug? What problem is it causing? Right. So it's a matter of slowing things down too, but helping them to, process or go through that process and make it a little bit smoother and to help kind of ease the frustration. So using AI to help debugging can be a really helpful tool for that as well. So here, similar process. I've got some sample Python code again, but in this example, there are some bugs already in this code to kind of help us demonstrate how this process might work. So this is slide 21, and there's a very similar looking Google Doc, but this has some buggy code. And there are three very common mistakes in this code. Some very common bugs that students might make. So you can take this same game. It's rock, paper, scissors. But again, there are three bugs in here somewhere. And we're going to use AI to help identify those bugs, and then use AI to help me figure out why it's a bug, what problem it's causing, and help me through the process of trying to fix those bugs. So there's a sample prompt here. It says, I'm having trouble with my code. There are some errors. Can you help me find the bugs and explain them to me? Okay. And that's an important part when we're considering using AI tools like this. It's not just, can you find the bugs and fix it for me? But can you find the bugs and help explain them to me, right? That key word, explain. Okay. And how do you know students are doing this? Well, we'll get into that a little later. But it's important how we prompt our AI tool to help us through this process. Are we learning from that process? Are we allowing AI to help us learn? Okay. So something to keep in mind. Okay. So, excuse me. So let me try again. I'm going to create a new chat. Can you help me debug this code? Can you help me locate the bugs and explain them to me so that I can learn how to fix them myself, something like that. And then I'll paste the code down below. Sure, grab it. Okay, and send. Get rid of that. Okay, so again, it's already identifying that it's a rock, paper, scissors game. And it knows right off the bat that there are three bugs. It was able to analyze the code that I gave it and identify three bugs. Like I mentioned earlier, there are three bugs that are in this code, and it breaks it down for me. So bug one, there's a missing colon in an if statement. So it highlights specifically what that bug is, and it further breaks down that issue. Okay, it's a syntax error in my if statement for checking the quit command. It locates it for me, explains why it's a problem. So in Python, it kind of explains if in ifs or elifs or else or whiles or fors, a function definition line must end with a colon. Okay, and it tells me how to fix it. Add a colon at the end of the line. So it shows me that line of code and what it looks like with the bug. And then it shows me what that should look like after the bug. It's actually giving me the solutions here. And then it breaks down bug two, an incorrect function name for random selection. Again, locates it, describes why it's a problem, explains to me how to fix it, and then shows me the example. And then bug three. So again, a really great tool for debugging, but of course, asking it to break down where the bugs are, why it's a bug, how we can fix it. That process of explaining is extremely important. And then in the very end, it gives me the entire code with everything fixed. Now, this is something this is just a really quick one-off attempt. This is not what I would want AI to do for my students. Okay, so showing the how to fix and what it should look like, and then just spitting the correct code back at my student is probably not something, depending on where we're at in a computer science class, I probably wouldn't want them to get the full solution like this. So for my students, I think, especially for my younger students, I would probably use something like Magic School instead, and design a chatbot with prompts on the back end where I, as the teacher, I'm telling it not to do these things specifically. Maybe focus on like this information, and then have the AI tool kind of question the student through how they think it should be fixed. So definitely a different approach. I wouldn't want it giving the solutions right off the bat, though. Right. So again, something to consider. That's why we test things, right? But again, the idea is the unstick me prompt, right? So having AI as that sort of pair programmer, that guide on the side that can help them through what can be a frustrating process, but being able to explain and teach or help educate the student on where those bugs are, and engaging them in how to fix it. Okay, so the other tool that I want to demonstrate is Canva code. I think Canva is one of our sponsors, right, Chris?
Canva is, yeah, one of the tools
I think so, yeah.
that we're able to use. Yeah.
And they just rolled out some really powerful AI tools, one of which is the ability to vibe code apps and activities for teachers. So students could also do this too, but I've been using it primarily as a teacher to create like study guides and digital activities for my students. And I'm just vibe coding, basically explaining to it what kind of activity I want, what are the outcomes, what are the goals that I want my students to achieve, and it designs an entire app, excuse me, that my students can then interact with. Again, something like Canva code might be better suited for a non-CS class, a way for teachers to create activities like games or websites. But let's take a look and see what's possible here. Okay, so there is a tool, one specific tool. There's a lot of different AI features built into Canva to do lots of different things, but something that's fairly new is its ability, again, to create interactive online apps, or they also call them widgets. Okay, so what you do is in Canva here. So I've got Canva. You can try this along with me. If you log into your Canva account, on the home page here, there is an option called Canva AI. And when you click on Canva AI, it kind of expands the prompt box here. And embedded near the bottom here is this option for code. And if you select code, then you could vibe code with the tool. You just describe your idea. It'll code it for you, and you can have a conversation in order to iterate. There's also some kind of pre-built ideas down below here. So if you're not sure what to create, or maybe you have an idea but you're not really sure what kind of what format would best fit that idea, there's some really interesting ones on here, like creating a flashcard game, a sorting activity, a vocab matching game, a memory matching game. This is really cool. I was playing with this one last night, a 3D game exploring space. That was pretty cool. I'm going to show you an example of that in just a moment. It's not perfect, but interesting idea. So I'm just going to type a prompt into the box. And I've got an idea here that you can try if you want. But if you have your own idea, feel free to give it an idea. Maybe it's you want to create an activity for an upcoming lesson or project coming up this week. But one thing that I'm doing with my students is my fifth graders are learning about climate change, and they're doing a big project around that. So the idea that came to my mind was creating a trash sorting game that teaches, I typed that wrong, the importance of reuse, reduce, recycle. So I'm going to try that one out. So in Canva here, create a trash sorting game that teaches the idea of reuse, reduce, recycle. Enter. And so again, this is the idea of vibe coding. You're having a natural conversation. You're just being able to articulate your ideas to the tool. It takes care of the coding, as you can see there. And what's really cool about Canva, it actually shows you in real time the code that it's creating. And then once it's done creating that code, it'll flip it over to a visual representation of what that code is doing. So it'll actually show you the app that it creates. It's even telling you how many lines of code. You can see it's going to use icons to represent different pieces of trash and the idea of reuse, reduce, recycle. It's getting there. There we go. So it says I'll create an interactive trash sorting game. Perfect. I've created a colorful, interactive trash sorting game that teaches environmental responsibility. And it gives you a version here. I'll get into that a little later. But here is my trash sorting game. Zoom out a little bit. Make that fit a little better. Okay. And then what's really cool, the AI chat's on my left. I've got my game on the right, where I can either show the code or show the actual live version of it, and then I can actually play the game to see if it's doing to see how it works. Okay, so my assumption is I'm going to drag and drop. So cardboard, that's something that I can I? Let's see what is happening here. Oh, I see. Can I reuse it? Nope. And it says tells me to try again. Let's recycle it. There we go. And it gives me a score. Tote bag, I can reuse that. Bottled water, I'm gonna recycle that. Nope. Oh, bottled water, I want to reduce that. Okay, so really cool. Let's see, trash, glass bottle, food waste, trash.
That's a lot of fun, Michael.
Yeah, pretty cool.
That's a ton of fun. It just strikes me as another opportunity or a different opportunity for students to demonstrate their learning. It may not be strictly tied to computer science or coding, but they could design these applications for a variety of different subject areas. So instead of us giving them the assessment in our own predefined format or what we think would work best for students, we can now position them in terms of deliberately creating these products that demo their understanding. So this is really
pretty powerful. Yeah, definitely. As I mentioned earlier, it could be. I kind of see this as something like for a non-CS class, like you said, like if they're just able to articulate in their own words what they want to create, can they design an app that demonstrates their understanding of the topic?
Mm-hmm.
One thing I'm actually considering using vibe coding is with, I mentioned briefly a moment ago that our fifth graders are a really big project around climate change. And they actually do, there's two aspects of their project where they're learning how to program and design different types of games and interactive experiences for an audience. So they learn computer science through those two tools. I'm actually considering adding in something like this as a third aspect of the project. So can they demonstrate being computer scientists and designing an experience for a user and programming it? And then can they also vibe code something and articulate their understanding of a topic and design an app that way as well? It could be really cool to kind of allow students to demonstrate computer science in two very different ways.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so through here you could iterate. So maybe it's like, what did it give me? 5? I could say like, can the user be given 10 different items? Right. And so what you do is you chat, you play and experience it and test it. And then again, through very just natural language, asking it questions, giving it further ideas. See, very quickly was able to add in five more things. That was in a matter of seconds. And you see here, at least in Canva, and this is what I like about Canva's vibe coding tool, is it breaks it down into versions, and I can actually go back to previous versions. So very quickly, I can jump back to version 1 to see where I started, and I can skip, to any version in the history of this conversation. And then in Canva, you can also you can publish this. So when you feel like it's ready, or if you want others to test it and give you feedback, which I think is a really important part of the process for students as well, is I could take this. I'll call this trash sorting 1 and publish it. So in Canva, when you publish it, it gives it a unique URL. There we go. So copy this. Yeah, throw it in the chat. You guys can play my. Oh, wait. Let's see. I can't put. Can I post this? Oh, it's not letting me post the comment. What's the best way to put a link in the chat here? I'll try this. I'd have to do some editing. I'm gonna throw the link in here with some spaces, and you guys can fix it. See if that works. Nope, doesn't let me do that either. Okay.
Yeah, I need to post it. If you like, Michael, you can maybe drop the link into your slides somewhere.
Oh yes.
In the
okay.
note, and
I'll do that.
I can grab it out of there and post
I do.
it in the chat.
I do have. I think if you're on this resource webpage, everyone, there is. I did create another version of this earlier, a trash sorting game. It's linked up in the resources links list here. When I was testing this out earlier, I did create a different version of this that looks like this. So this one gives you one object at a time, and then you decide what to do with it. So glass jar, glass jar could, no, reuse. Oh yeah, glass jar could be shampoo bottle, recycle. Okay, so feel free to test that out. What's interesting too is it's every time you run this, it completes an entirely different way of doing it. It's not the same every single time. All right, and then I think what was it? We had someone in the chat earlier just saying there's a free Canva code student lesson on December 12th at 1 p.m. So great opportunity to help get your students trying this out for themselves as well.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. So so just to wrap up this idea of Canva as a vibe coding tool, as you saw, like in my example, it's not going to be perfect the first time, right? It does a pretty good job of getting that first version, but it's definitely an iterative process, right? And so what you also, if you're going to try this on your own, if you're going to explore this idea with students, there's this idea of refining the vibe, right? The output is rarely perfect the first time. And so again, the skills lie in the conversation that students have, their ability to articulate and explain their idea and further iterate that idea. So if you don't like what happened the first time, or maybe the layout is not quite what you wanted, or the scoring isn't necessarily what you want, maybe you want like a high score feature in there, or maybe they lose points when they get something wrong. Like those are things you have to be able to articulate in the conversation with the AI in order to refine and improve upon that experience that you're trying to create. So that conversation and how you're able to word and explain that conversation is the important piece of this concept of vibe coding. Okay, so you could follow up, like I have an example prompt here, like can you present the player, like in my previous, when I was practicing this in my previous version, it just presented one object and they had to sort one thing at a time, which might be great for very young students, but maybe I'm designing something for adults or for older students, and this might be seem a little bit too kiddish, right? So I might be able to follow up by saying, like, present them with an assortment of trash items that they drag to different areas. So like in this version, that's something I might want to explain to to the tool in order to iterate. And again, on link 24, there's a link to my trash sorting game here. Okay. Okay. We at 8:30. Okay, so two really good examples there. I'm going to come back to that a little later and show some other examples, I think, if we have some time. But I did want to, it's definitely important to consider the ethical question here, which you kind of got to a little earlier in the conversation. But there's what we call the black box problem. And the idea, the question here, the thing we need to keep at the forefront of our minds as teachers is, again, if AI is doing all the coding, if it's writing the code and building the experience and creating the user interface, what are the students actually learning in that process? And so we have to acknowledge this fear of de-skilling. Okay? And so the key question here is, are we teaching them to drive the car or to build the engine? Okay? And what I mean by that is, students, they won't know how to drive the car because the self-driving feature is too good, right? But in 2025 and in the future, helping students knowing how to navigate is going to be really important. It might be more important than knowing how to shift the gears, right? And so, again, for me at least, as a computer science teacher, I'm definitely not going to abandon this idea of teaching computer science, but how can I balance, teaching them the skills of being good programmers alongside this ability where tools can do it all for them now, and being able to find that balance in approaching it with the idea of teaching them a different set of skills and teaching programming alongside vibe coding. I'm not really sure. I don't have the answers to those questions, but it's definitely something that I, as a teacher, can't ignore. We simply can't ignore it, right? That the tools are getting better and better. But how can we shift our thinking and help students to find the advantages in these tools?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Michael. And in the slide you mentioned today in 2025, what does that mean for us?
Mhm.
But I think I've heard and or read somewhere, it might have come from the OECD, that by 2030, AI literacy or fluency using those types of tools will be a global competency. So
Yeah.
we do have an important job to do in teaching students how to use these tools. So you raise a really awesome question and something that's going to be on our minds, I think, moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. Yep. And the year's almost over. Okay, so I'm going to pause here. We're not going to get to that just yet. I do want to show um, some other examples really quick. I mentioned earlier that Gemini can also be a vibe coding tool. It's actually my primary go-to tool for vibe coding. Create a new chat here. So just to show you what's possible in Gemini, if you have access to Gemini, there is a tool, not to get confused here, but there's a tool in Gemini called Canvas. And Canvas is a coding tool that can generate code and create apps or activities or even websites um, through vibe coding, right? So I could ask it like the same thing here. I asked it, can you create a trash sorting game that teaches ideas of reduce, reuse, recycle? And then let's see, there it goes. So once it processes that prompt, it takes you into this interface called Canvas, which looks very similar to Canva, where you have the conversation on the left and the coding tool on the right side here. You see it's generating the code. And then once it generates the code, it creates the preview for me. 3 R's challenge, start game. What is the best action for this item? So this one's doing it one object at a time for me. Let's try reuse, correct. Now we'll say, I don't know, personally, I like the layout and the user interface design of Gemini a little better than Canva right now. Things are a little bit cleaner. It's giving me pop-up prompts and things like that. What is the best action for this item? Recycle, yeah. And keeping track of source. So very similar process. You can switch between the code, the preview. You can continue the conversation here. It even gives you some ideas, like let me know if you want to adjust the list of items or the scoring rules. So it's kind of giving you some ideas of how it might be able to iterate for you based on your thoughts as well. And then you can then share this. So you can get a unique URL, share it with somebody to play and test out for you. You can copy the code. So some ways I'm using this right now, I think I mentioned earlier, is I've been actually vibe coding apps for my son to help him study for upcoming tests. He doesn't do very well with a piece of paper with a bunch of words and definitions on it. So I vibe code interactive experiences for him to help him study. So like right now in science class, they're learning about plant and animal cells. They have to know all the parts and the definitions of all these parts. And they have to identify where these parts are in cells. So I took his teacher's diagram and broke up the different parts. And then in Gemini, I had it vibe code this matching game. So he looks at number 1 up here. Here's number 1. Oh, right here. Here's number 1. And he has to be able to identify what that is, and then select the organelle, and then select the matching definition. And red means wrong, green means right. So being able to identify the parts here, and then they have to know how to spell correctly on their quizzes. So down below, I vibe coded a separate tool here that gives him the definition, and then he has to correctly spell the organelle, and then it'll tell him if he's right or wrong. So these are things I quickly vibe coded in Gemini, and then you can embed the code directly into like a Google site. And I just send this link to my son, and he uses this to study for his upcoming plant and animal cells quiz. And then here's the trash sorting game.
That's amazing, Michael. I like that idea of being, as a parent, if I have some digital skills or fluency with some AI tools, that might be a way that I can help my child prepare and or study. So super, super cool example. And I think that that throws a challenge towards us as parents to, how do we fit in and, what our responsibilities when it comes to use of technology.
Yeah. Sort of I don't know, what I'm considering now is, I do this for my son. I spend the time, and as a parent, I teach computer science. I'm comfortable with AI, so I feel comfortable doing these things. I know that's not the same experience for
Right.
every parent, but
Yeah.
my sort of next step I'm considering is helping my son, teach my son how he can create these things in an AI
Yeah,
tool to help, to
sure.
help him make better choices on how he can study for upcoming quizzes and tests and things like that.
I just
Yeah.
see a comment in the chat. So
Oh.
Michelle is suggesting that she hopes that you sent that app over to the teacher, so
That's the
other
other thing.
students could
Yeah.
study up as well. So
Yeah,
that's great.
definitely. Even as teachers, like how can we create experiences like this to help our students be more successful? If you're expecting them to know how to spell and know the
Hmm.
definitions and identify all the parts, and we're just giving them a piece of paper,
Hmm.
that's not going to help every student,
Yeah.
right? We have to be able to meet them where they're at, and yeah. All right. Okay, so to wrap things up here, a a couple things about so how do we assess this really quick? So if we're asking them to use AI for comprehension to understand code or to debug, how do we assess them on how do we assess them in the end, right? And so some ideas here, one around prompt history. So definitely, if you're allowing students to use AI in any way, they should be able to share their chat history, right? You should be able to analyze that to see what kind of conversations they had, and grade. You can grade them on the evolution of their thought process. What questions did they ask? What ideas did they share? Or were they just sort of expecting the AI to do it all for them? So something to consider there. The other is the shifting of the rubric, being able to grade on clarity and iteration. Did they ask generic questions, or did they guide the AI with specific constraints? There's also I love this idea, the code defense. So if you can't explain it, then you didn't learn anything. So even if AI wrote it, the student should still be able to own that code and be able to explain what that code is doing. So the rule here in the code defense, it's like an oral defense, is I, as the teacher, pick out maybe randomly one line of code, and the student needs to be able to explain why that line of code is there and what it does. And if they can do that, then it helps me to better helps me to identify whether they're actually learning something, whether they understand as they use AI to help them. If they can't explain it, then they obviously didn't learn anything. So we call that the code defense. Okay, so wrapping things up. Sorry, I just want to meet the time here. Really quick, if you're watching live in the poll, I'm just curious if there's either one of the tools, something that you might consider using in your classroom soon, or if you have your own tool of choice. I think if you want to take a moment and just chime in the chat there, is it Gemini as a logic or a tutor? Or is it Canva's new code tool for creating visually appealing apps and tools to help students? Or if there's a different tool that you're familiar with that you want to consider trying, chime in the chat. Let us know. I think the more we share with each other, the more we learn from each other. And maybe you have a tool that others aren't familiar with. I see one viewer is mentioning Notebook LM. That's also a great option too. Yeah. Definitely. Let us know in the chat what you might consider using in the near future.
Well, while others are posting in the chat, Michael, an example of I've used Google Colab in the past. So, of course, the visual output isn't much like what we see here with Gemini or with Canva code. But maybe for older students who are learning to program with Python, you do have Gemini built into Colab, which can run in a side pane, so it can give you those ideas. So you can prompt it to help you along the way to identify the bugs and to give suggestions, etc. So, and coding different applications. I think the plus with Canva and or Gemini or other AI agents or chatbots is that, again, like you showed us, they take care of the programming. So Canva does the HTML, the CSS, and the JavaScript to produce that visually beautiful output. But if you're looking more for the raw coding and getting that guide on the side type of AI assistance, then I rather enjoyed using Colab myself and learning Python.
I'm gonna check that one out myself.
Yeah, I had fun with it.
Cool. Thanks, Chris.
Hey,
all right,
welcome.
so to wrap things up here, I just have a challenge for you. If you're new to vibe coding, maybe make it a goal of yours at some point, either maybe during the upcoming holiday, if you have holiday coming up, or within the next month or so. Explore this idea of vibe coding, where the goal is the idea, right? Can you articulate your idea to design some type of experience for a user, and focus on the idea and not the syntax. Let the tool do the coding for you. See what's possible. See what you're able to create. All right. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining me today in this last session of this amazing event. I'm going to hand it back over to Chris here for one final reminder.
Thank you so very much, Michael, for sharing your skill, your experience, and your enthusiasm for
Mm.
coding and using these new tools to help us move forward with our own learning about coding. So, by all means, everyone, the link's posted in the chat. But if you'd like to get your certificate, that's the way to do it. You can scan the QR code or use the link that's in the chat to get your very own certificate for the session and show that off. For advance, maybe there's a couple more slides there, Michael, for us to wrap and round things
Sure.
out. I believe so.
Feedback.
Your feedback, yeah, is so very important to the work that Logix does in providing these wonderful sessions for educators that they can attend in their own time, either synchronously or on demand when they have the time to watch them. So please, we would appreciate your feedback. The link is there as well as in the chat. And
Sorry.
remember, that's okay, Michael. All this month, right? We're celebrating computer science education. So again, there's a link there, a website. If you go to the Logic website or through the social media, you're going to see this. So have a look at all the wonderful sessions and opportunities to support your learning and your teaching. And without further ado, unless there are other questions, things folks that want to post in the chat, we'll hang out for a moment or two. But have a great rest of day. And yeah,
Thanks,
thank you so
Chris.
very much.
Thanks for your support today.
Hey, you're very welcome. Very welcome. My pleasure.
Thank you, everyone, for watching.